This afternoon, we've got a real treat for you. We are going to have a panel discussion, and we've got the right people up here in the panel. Now, I'm not going to introduce them. I'm going to leave it to the person that I am going to introduce them to you. The person I'm going to introduce, who's going to kind of moderate this panel, the gentleman's name is Don Simoneaux. Now, Don is probably one of the first people I ever met as I got involved with Serra on more of a national basis. Probably walked into either Omaha or Chicago, and I think I've seen Don Simoneaux at every event that I've ever been at with Serra. He is such a loyal Serran, dedicated Serran, just like typically all of us Serrans in this room, but he has been doing it for many, many years. So I really appreciate that, Don, at what you've been doing. Yeah, I know. I was going to get to that. Okay. Yeah, he is from Texas, if anybody didn't hear that. But Don is wonderful. He's probably had every position there has been in the club level. He's been district governor, regional director. He's been a member of our board, and not so long ago either. So he has been very active and very loyal. And with that, I want everybody to give a warm, round applause to the Texan, Don Simoneaux. Don.
I have a chuck for you later. Well, welcome. It's a little bit of a sparse crowd, but the folks who are not here are going to regret that they didn't come, I'm sure. We had some talks earlier today. Father Ballman was showing some charts of where the seminarians come from. And a lot of them, you know, what we're used to thinking of is young men who graduate from high school and they go into the seminary. And they spend a certain number of years in the seminary and they become a priest. Sort of like one of the members of my club. She has a son. I think when we met the family, her son was 11 years old. And she told us then he wants to be a priest. And he's in the seminary today. I think he's got maybe 3 more years at the Notre Dame Seminary in New Orleans. But as we saw this morning when Father Ballman taught, that not everybody who's in the seminary follows that path. And so we have 3 priests today who didn't follow that path, and they're all in campus ministry in the Fort Worth Diocese. We have some campus ministers and ministries in the Dallas Diocese as well. But all 3 of these priests are in the Fort Worth Diocese. 2 of them have been involved with Vocations for many years. We Serrans locally have been working with them on some of our vocation programs, and so we know them quite well. Father Maurice, a little bit younger, he hasn't been around quite as long, but he's also doing some things. So we have, first of all, right here, Father Jonathan Wallis, who, in addition to being a campus minister, is now also the Vicar General for the Diocese of Fort Worth. He did his college work before he ever went in the seminary at TCU and converted to Catholicism after he graduated. And now one of his duties is campus minister at TCU in Fort Worth. In the middle, we have Father Maurice Moon. He didn't follow a traditional path to becoming a priest either. In fact, I don't think any one of the 3 of them really had given a whole lot of thought about being a priest when they were in college. But he has now been ordained as a priest for the Diocese of Fort Worth and as a campus minister at Nolan Catholic High School in Fort Worth. So we have 2 college campus ministers and 1 high school. The other one, Father Walterscheid, known for quite a long while. He's been the vocation director for the Diocese of Fort Worth for several years. Father Jonathan also was vocation director. And those who were here this morning when Bishop Olson spoke, after he finished speaking, I asked him a question about the fact that Fort Worth now has a team approach to doing vocations, and he explained why they did that. So all three of these men are working as vocation liaisons in the Diocese of Fort Worth, along with, I think, maybe 3 other priests. And so anyway, those are the panelists we have, and what I will do is now turn it over to them, because I'm sure you're going to enjoy what they have to say. And what I'd like to do is ask each one of them to say a few words about the particular campus that they're on, and you know, the number of students and some of the kinds of things they're doing. So we'll take maybe 5 minutes each to do that, and then I have a few questions that I will ask them, and then ask each one of them to respond.
Well, it is great to be here with y'all, to see a number of familiar faces and from people from all over. So thank you again for this opportunity. It's not common for me right now to be speaking to people who are older than me. Just guessing. I've become the old man, especially at TCU, where it's 30 years ago that I went to TCU, and I did some math, and it would be like, I started in 1992, so the stories I have would be like somebody who had been at TCU in 1962. And so inside, I'm sure everybody feels the same way as me. You don't feel as old as you are, probably, until you look in the mirror or something. But it's a great place to be at TCU. We have about 26% of the student body is Catholic at TCU, and that's a great number in percentage. So it's 10,000 students, give or take. And I started there in the midst of COVID, along with another campus minister. There had been a full-time priest for another number of years, and then one for a couple years, and then we didn't have a priest to send to TCU for a little while. So I was not a full-time chaplain there, but meaning that I'm not on campus every single day, but I'm there every weekend and Wednesday. And so one of the interesting things is landing the same time as COVID. And what COVID did, what we found, is first off, there weren't very many other opportunities for the students to get together. The Diocese of Fort Worth has its own Newman Center, and it's very close to campus. It's now surrounded by campus, but doesn't belong to the TCU campus, which allowed us to do a little bit more under the COVID restrictions that were a little less than TCU. But it really offered an opportunity to ask what's essential and what's not, because the majority of the students' lives, they were all turned upside down in March of 2020, and as were all of our lives. And so to really ask the question, what's essential and what's not? And as things have come back, what we have really found is there's a tremendous spiritual depth amongst the students. And while I don't use a phone as well as they do, or can use the projector as well as they can, or technology, I didn't think I was as far behind as I actually am, and now it's too late to catch up, and I really don't care to. It's kind of nice being the old curmudgeonly guy. I know why they did it, because it's kind of fun. But Jesus Christ is the one thing that unites everybody. And so with my new campus minister, when we first started, we were like, we just keep it basic. If we can get 3 1/3 yard every run, we're gonna make first downs, and that's all we gotta do. You just keep moving the ball forward. And so we keep it simple, sacraments, and by keeping the community healthy as well. And that's what we really try to do at TCU, where one of the things that we have had some success is when we first got there, I'd been working at a seminary, and so that's all men. And when I got to TCU, it was over 90% women at the Newman, which is great. But we also wanted to see some more guys, and the campus director started doing some men-only groups, and we're about 60-40 now, girls to guys, which is a pretty good, that's kind of where we want to be. Where we also didn't lose anybody, we're able to grow it a little bit, but as things get busier again, the students, we don't see as many students coming, but it's not because they don't want to be there, it's because they have all of the normal activities going on. But that's just a little brief thing about TCU campus ministry. 18 to 22, I think their challenges are the challenges that we've all faced in life, and the answer to those challenges is the same. How those things are communicated, I am a social media hermit. I don't have Twitter or Facebook or any of those things, but I have a lot of students that do, and so they're able to get the message out. And so it's a very collaborative team approach when it comes to that. But I enjoy the ministry very much, and so I also want to thank, just before I hand over the mic to Father Maurice, is I remember going to the VAP program, the Vocation Awareness Program. I went in 2005. I entered the seminary in 2007, and at the end of that weekend, I wanted the answer, should I become a priest or not? And at the end of the weekend, I kind of knew that I should, and I wanted a different answer from God, so. But eventually I said yes, and it is nice. Father Maurice entered the seminary a couple years after I was ordained, but I remember very well Father Kyle served as a mentor to me for a long time. He was in third theology whenever I first started, and he was always good about just, I'd be like, why do we do this? Why do we do this? And he would just calm down. It's going to be all right, you know. So he always brought a very calming effect whenever I wanted to get fired up. So, Father Maurice.
Yeah, the AP weekend was very helpful for my vocation as well. Going there and seeing religious for the first time and talking with them was very, very helpful. So I've been at Nolan Catholic for 4 years, and maybe I'll be graduating soon and going off to be a college minister. We'll see. But I like it at Nolan. It's a great opportunity to affect many people's lives. There's about 715 students there. And so my role as a chaplain is to offer the sacraments, be available to students, especially for confession. They know if my door is open, they can go to confession anytime. There's always a sign outside my door saying confession's here. We have, confessions all day, First Fridays at the school. Mass, all school masses once a week, daily mass in the morning before school for those who want to go. I have a group of about 7 young men they're kind of a discipleship group. We meet 3 days a week for about an hour or so, and it's an opportunity for them to grow in service and fellowship and their love for Christ. And so like today, just before I got here, I met with those guys. It's a class for them. It's called Life Team. And great conversations, great opportunities to get to know these guys better and for them to see what the priesthood is all about. So I have different odd jobs too at the school. I was coaching JV baseball last year, really enjoyed that. I do step into classrooms and teach theology and philosophy. Just try to be, present in their lives. The priest is called to be all things to all people, and if the priest sees that he cares about what they care about, it helps them to see the priesthood in a really positive light. So I try to attend as many meetings and groups as I can on campus. So 4 years there, it's been great. I hopefully have a gentleman this year who's applying for seminary. I'd like to see more in the future, but I love this calling that I have as to be a high school chaplain and help these students come to know, love, and serve Jesus Christ.
I'm gonna time mine. I got 4 minutes and 55 seconds left. One of the things that our bishop has done is to put a chaplain at Nolan High School, a diocesan chaplain, and Maurice. You've had a few before you, right? You're like the second or third. So this is a very good thing because it allows us to reach a broad. Nolan High Schools kind of handles everything of Fort Worth within if you can get there within 45, 50 minutes, it's the main high school, Catholic high school in the diocese. So it really covers a broad territory of people that are wanting to go to, send their kids to a Catholic high school. So that presence, I think, is a big positive for our diocese. I have been at the University of North Texas and Texas Women's University starting converting a campus center to a parish, and our parish is St. John Paul II Catholic Church, and it's right adjacent to UNT. In some ways now, it's indistinguishable just about. And we finally have a church. We actually have a building. We had been on campus for many, many years. Back in 2005, I served there as well. We had masses. Our masses were on our campuses, just non-denominational buildings or whatever. But now we have our own church, and that gives a little bit more stability because there's a place to go. There's a place for worship on a daily basis, place for confessions, Eucharistic adoration. That is separate from everything else. So that has been a major plus for us at UNT and TW. We are 16% Catholic at UNT and TW. So there's 40,000 students. It's about 6,000 Catholic students at UNT and about 1,600 students at TW that are Catholic. Trying to reach that number, right? That's the big thing, is trying to reach out to that large community. And that is, I think that's where a real crux is when our children or grandchildren go off to college, trying to keep them connected to the Catholic Church. And the primary way is our campus centers. The biggest thing we could ever tell parents and grandparents, when you send your kid off to a college, first thing you do is find the campus center. If they don't have a Catholic campus center, don't send them there. Just don't. I just can't emphasize that enough, because they're not going to, just out of human nature, and we all have lived human nature, your tendency is to do a little bit less than what you have to do, right? But if you have a campus center there and you got a Catholic church there, that availability opens up a door. And we had, over the weekend, we had some students that are in the Denton area, but they're going to Texas A&M. And just to hear them speak a little bit, that they have made St. Mary's Catholic Campus Center their home. That's when they're not on campus and they're studying, they prefer to go to St. Mary's Catholic Campus Center to study. And that's their home. Their home isn't just Texas A&M, their home becomes the campus center. And I think that mindset, trying to create that environment that is an invitation. Certainly, I would say, come on, I got Mass here every day. Why don't y'all join us? 6,000 students aren't joining me. That's not happening. So there are other entrances by which to bring them and have that invitation into our campus centers. And so that is some of the things currently that I'm working on. And anyway, I'm enjoying the ministry. So one of the things I think that we do that's involved more toward the Serrans, and that is vocational work, is working to have the young college men to be altar servers, lectors, getting them in the choir. These are places where I'm going to be on a regular basis, certainly the weekends for weekend masses, but even on a daily mass. And it gives opportunity for the priest to speak with that young man. And that is, I'm not saying that I've produced much fruit here lately, but we have to be there. If we have the right position, it will eventually, those doors will open. So thank you.
Okay, one question I have. I know, Bishop Burns and Dallas, we're in the process of beefing up the campus ministry at the University of Texas at Dallas. And I know he has said he thinks that is something that will pay some dividends down the road as far as vocations. And I would imagine you have some of the same experiences in Fort Worth. So what kinds of things have you seen in the young people who are involved with the campus ministry? Are you seeing young men and women who may be thinking they have a vocation? And if so, is it a large percentage of the ones who are involved, or a small percentage?
At TCU right now, we have a couple young women who are discerning religious life and one gentleman who's thinking about it. But I think the first step is even saying this is a place where this conversation can happen, and even figuring out, because TCU costs around $60,000 a year, and it's just going up. So you have $240,000 degree, and sometimes with families, even if they are good Catholic families, once they've invested $240,000, saying, "Hey, now I'm going to become a priest," that's not always an easy sell. So what we've been doing, what I've been trying to do through different presentations, not just me, but other students, is the idea of what it is that God is calling us to do, but also pulling us outside of ourselves, because any vocation is not just directed towards me being happy. Like, God is not sitting in heaven thinking, how can I make Father Wallis happy today? Now, eternally, yes, life with God, that will be happy, but just every single moment is not a party, as we all know, and they know that too. But also finding ways that they encourage each other too. So if a young man begins saying, "I'm thinking about the priesthood," it's a little delicate because you just don't want to pounce and over push too hard. But if you never bring that up, then the question never gets answered. But I think over time, I've again just been there a year and a half, but beginning to see at least students who want to come and talk about those vocations. So, and just being open to it. And also, I think it does matter. I like being a priest, and I tell them that. And it doesn't mean that my life is perfect, but I like what I'm doing. And I think that that's also attractive. Like, if you see people who like to serve Jesus, it makes you want to do it a little bit more too. So I do see that people are open to vocations. And it's, again, not finding a silver bullet, but I think just tilling the ground, and we'll see what it yields.
Yeah, first time to have a diocesan priest on the campus at Nolan full-time, happened 5 years ago. And so Bishop saw a huge opportunity to help students to think about priesthood, young men to think about the priesthood, and for women to think about religious life. And so I think just being on that campus and being a presence, a priestly presence, helps them to put into their mind, hey, maybe I could do that someday. And so the priest presence is so important, and especially when you're on a campus like Nolan, it's a great opportunity.
Yes, to have opportunities. I think we do have, like, first, I guess, St. Andrew breakfast that we have, and that's once a month on Saturday mornings. So we have invitations, opportunities that we can also point them beyond the campus center. I think there's quite a few things there that the students can take advantage of. We do have, I think that building a culture of the gospel, I think is vital. One of the things I'm working on right now is helping the Catholic culture work more toward a covenant relationship with God. And a covenant relationship isn't I show up on Sunday. And in some ways, we really got to break out of that mentality that a covenant relationship is 24/7. It's all the time. The Lord is protecting. He's gracing us. We're part of His family, and I want to give back, right? And so to get students into the mentality of that, once we can get them there, it kind of feeds itself. And so we have quite a few more, kind of what Father Wallis said, we have more women than men that are at that level, but we're also about 60-40, 60% women, 40% men, which is a good place because in the past, 10 years ago, it was 10 women to 1. It literally was. And when a guy walked in, this is a side story, when a guy walked into the room in the campus center, they would find the nearest corner and just kind of go over there because they didn't feel like they really fit. There wasn't a place for them. So that it sounds like through other dioceses we're finding that balance there. But creating that atmosphere gives them then the freedom to say yes to the next step, whatever that next step is. And we do have 4 guys that are studying religious life from our parish and 4 men. So it's a beginning after 10 years of work, but we're beginning to see some of those fruits, I would say, out of that.
Hey, one other thing I was wondering about is that, of course, in spite of all the changes, things have been in turmoil for the past 2 years, but before that, I had a sense that more young people who are in college may be thinking perhaps about a vocation than used to be the case maybe 20 years or so ago. And I was wondering if you've noticed any difference over the years in the students who may be thinking about a vocation or even thinking about joining the campus ministry.
Yeah, we'll rotate. So, yeah, I do. There's a lot of differences. In 20 years, I can see that. I think in general, campuses have become more secular, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not looking at the religious life as much. To some degree, that intentional push that secular society is pushing onto teenagers, high school students, college students, there is also a strong pushback from that. There's a large, I would say there's sizable number of students that don't want that. They're looking for something more than what secular society is pushing onto them. They are searching, Don, they are in fact searching for a deeper dimension, the spiritual dimension. They're wanting that union with God. There's a natural dimension to it, and then supernatural with baptism that is drawing them. And so things have changed in the last 20 years, but I would also say there's a tendency and a little bit of a drive to go against, to be countercultural, and to go to find that, if they can find a community that is supportive of that spiritual dimension. I don't see a hesitation for them to do that. It's a matter of kind of finding them. Yeah.
I know Father Maurice was 20 years ago, so right. So, but I don't quite have the same history, but I think the thing that I see today is people want to be connected, that they want the Newman Center to be their home, and they want to be there with others. And I do see, like Father Kyle said, where there are a lot of things in secular society that push people towards individual, privatized practice of faith or just life in general. But I would say that the students that I'm seeing are generous and want to serve, they want to give. And so it's just making sure to foster that going forward.
One thing that Sarah has been doing for the past several years is working with folks from the Newman Connection to try to get the names of students who are graduating from high school so that they can, and what colleges they're going to be going to. And I was wondering, for example, at Nolan, is there a way you have of getting the names of the students and where they're going to college so you can forward
Definitely.
those
I didn't know
on?
about that. That's great. That would be great.
You're doing that. And then the two of you, have you been receiving lists like that? And how much of a difference does that make? as far as being able to get them involved?
It's nice. It's really nice to have before school ever starts to receive a few letters that come in from the Newman Centers or Serrans that is giving us a name and email and phone number and contact. If we can get contact, then we can start dialoguing with them. So it's definitely advantageous to have that consistency or thread that goes together. Yeah.
So you've been receiving
Yes.
lists
Yes.
like that?
I do have to admit, the first thing I got, you would not believe the crazy things I get in my inbox. And so once I realized that it was not that I had been given, I found out earlier this year that I had been in Margaret Thatcher's will and that she had left me a whole bunch of money. So, because she did so because she recognized all the good that I had done in society. And I was just a kid in the 80s, so I'm glad somebody noticed, you know? So, but anyway, that was really helpful for us. We took that list and we were able to reach out and just generate some contacts that we wouldn't have had otherwise.
I guess one other thing I'll ask, and then if anybody else out there has any questions, we'll see, let them have a shot at it, is do you have any recommendations for us as Serrans on things that we can do to better support what you're doing on your campuses?
Serrans do a wonderful job, in many different ways. So Bill Moore reached out to a couple months ago, asking, are there any guys do you know of who would enjoy getting an invitation for a holy hour, because I think the Serrans meet once a month for a holy hour, and I thought that was a great opportunity to forward him some names of young men who have been in contact with me about the priesthood, and to have them invited to a holy hour and have the Serrans pray with them at that holy hour and maybe have a dinner afterwards. These are men over 18. And so that was one thing I thought was really good that could be started in more Serrans. Just a thought.
To have the Serrans, when I was at UT Arlington and Dr. Lou's here, the Serrans out of Arlington would provide a meal. I don't know if it was once a week or once a month, but they provided a meal for the University Catholic Campus Center at UT Arlington, and that opportunity to serve, to be present. I would go a step further and say, you know what? If I was providing the meal and I was a Serran, I would say, okay, we're going to pray for our meal, but before we pray for the meal, we're going to pray for vocations. Just put it out there, just get your vocation, just get your Serran prayer, and just pray that and say, this is the prayer that we pray every day as a couple or as an organization, and allow young people to realize that not only are you providing the meal out of charity and out of generosity and out of love for them, but you're also praying for the universal church. I think be bold is what I would say. Be a little bit bold, and ask your campus minister or your chaplain, would this be okay, or is there something more that I can do? Because I find it very, very helpful. I found the Serrans. I worked with both the Serrans of Dallas, the East and the West, as we would say, Dallas and Fort Worth, and we accomplished a lot of great things during those years. And I would put a little shout out. I really would like to get Serrans started up in Denton, and I just didn't get time to do that yet. And I'm going to start maybe a subgroup that would be before the Serrans get there. A gentleman named Pat out of Arlington spent many years going up to Denton trying to get that started. And but what I'm going to do is start a small group of couples, parishioners, there at the campus center, or there at the parish, to be praying for our seminarians, to be praying for vocations, and to keep in contact with those who have come from the parish or come from the campus center. that have gone off into religious life. Like I said, we have 8 altogether, and we need to keep that contact, and otherwise separation happens. What I can say, and I can probably speak for them on this one, is when you're in the religious life, you're in the seminary, and someone sends you a care package, you just became the center of attention for that day. I mean, the cookies barely even make it out of your hand, and everybody's taking them. But those make a huge difference, because just the grind of daily life and the things that you're doing, we can kind of forget about. That people are there praying for us. People are caring from the heart, and so those are just some other items I had thought of.
And not too much more to add from there, but I know the Arians had provided meals at TCU. They provided a humeral veil and cope, and we have weekly Eucharistic adoration and prayers, the support that's given, and we're also working with some other special projects, but I think that the prayer is most important. And then just to reemphasize, this has nothing to do with campus ministry, but the care packages to the seminaries make a huge impression, huge.
Father Kyle, I'm glad you mentioned that about UT Arlington. I was thinking about that before I asked you the question. I know we have members here from the University of Texas, or from the Arlington Metro-Serra Club, and I've heard them talk often about the fact that, you know, they provide a meal every month and various other things that they do in support of that. And on the Dallas side, Bishop Burns is working to get a building purchased and have a more substantial campus ministry at UT Dallas, which is in Richardson. It's about 6 miles from my house. So the club I belong to, North Central Dallas, you know, all of our members probably live within 10 miles of that campus. And so we're going to have to start thinking about maybe there's some things we can do to support the campus ministry. Okay, I see some folks raising hands, and I don't think it's because it's 4 o'clock. Okay, sure, okay. I think there are a few other people who have questions also.
My question is this, Father, you talked about the $240,000 debt, round numbers. Could you talk to the problem of students who want to enter religious life, and that is stopping them, that debt? And if that's the case, how do you help them mitigate that debt?
My experience is that religious life, you have to go in with a zero balance. So I've helped a couple guys discern, and they were able to pay off that debt before they entered. In the diocesan world, you don't have to do that. Loans can go into deferment, and Bishop Olson has worked very hard, and we have a very robust, for a long time, it's been the practice in at least our diocese that if you're ordained a priest, your student loans are paid off. Now that has gone up over the years. I was a beneficiary of that. I felt like, you know, I had brought the diocese just an incredible, staggering amount of student debt, which they paid, and it was $16,000. And I can assure you they have gotten that back and more. So that was a pretty good investment for the Diocese of Fort Worth. But to your point, there needs to be a very robust looking at that, but we haven't turned anybody away because of student debt, and we don't require our seminarians to take on student debt in the diocese. Now, there's various other dioceses do, and it wasn't always this way in Fort Worth, but it takes just a lot of fundraising and a lot of people who really believe in the mission of Vocations and the formation of priests to really invest in that, and we've been able to get some good traction in the Diocese of Fort Worth. But it's only going to go up, so it's something that has to be looked at from a lot of different angles.
Okay, I saw, Judy, did you have your hand up?
So, not only with the life team I have that we meet 3 days a week, I also meet about 10 guys, 10 or 15 guys before school on Thursday mornings, and I'll sometimes maybe give them a couple of pages of that book to read or something similar, and it's good stuff for discussion with them. But yes, I've seen good things from that book and from others with discipleship groups and talking with young men.
Do you need books?
Could always use books.
Anybody else? Margot?
Okay, I have 3 questions. One, do you all have vocation stations on your campuses?
What do you mean?
So the answer is no. So what they are, Beyond Vocation sells them, and they are bookcases that say vocation station on the top of it, and it's filled with all different kinds of vocation materials, including the books that we were just talking about. And it is fabulous. It's about
I gotcha. I know what you're talking about.
Probably raise the money
Yeah,
from your constituents, and
I know
I
what
would definitely, talk to Genevieve back there.
And it comes supplied with all the materials.
Yep, exactly. Secondly, are you familiar with call by name?
I've heard of it, yes.
Okay, you need to do call by name on your campuses. We have done it, I've worked very closely with the Rice University campus, the Student Center, and we've done call by name and we've gotten names. So, again, you can go out there and get a little kit that's a call by name kit, gives you all the instructions and so forth. 3, do you have Sarah clubs on your campus? I
Like
guess the answer is
Sarah's?
no. We started one at Rice, and so we have Rice students that are Sarahs. Now, we pay for them, obviously, we can't expect them to pay, but they are Sarahs and wear their badges. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Sam, did you have your hand up? Our district governor, Sam Pollock.
Father Kyle, I appreciate your words on students not just graduating from Catholic schools and trying to keep them from graduating from the Catholic faith. My question to someone who has teenagers and kids going off to school, what would be your best advice to a parent or a grandparent about how to keep your children from doing that, graduating not just from Catholic school,
Right.
from Catholic faith?
The ones that, the families, let me just say this, the families that have given the greatest impression to me at UNT the last 10 years are the families that choose at least once a semester, at minimum. You know, even if you had to, if you have a kid in New York or wherever, East Coast, West Coast, Chicago, wherever, go at least once a semester fly there, get there, and have them go to church with you. But the ones that do the best are there at least, I would say 3 times a semester. They come once a month. And I've got a family 10 years later. Their son lives in Denton, graduated UNT, lives in Denton, and they still come up about 2 to 3 times a semester. And he just lives there, and he's part of the parish now. The family is tight. It's very close. They're all Catholic, all live in the faith, and it's the happiest family you could imagine. So being on, and it also helps all of a sudden your priest, if they have a regular priest, some places have rotating priests through your campus centers, but if they have a priest that's there consistently, the priest begins to see and recognize those individuals, and then some more dialogue happens, and it just is a greater invitation, and an invitation to the young man and young woman, the son or daughter, to really continue to live that faith out. So that would be my number one.
Okay, Candace?
So, Father Kyle, I see that you were altar server, and you had altar server, and you had the privilege of ringing the bell.
Man, where did you get this? Oh, boy, yes.
In Houston, many parishes are starting that to just have boy altar servers.
Right,
Some are even having all girls at one mass and all boys at the other mass. But
okay.
we're in such a critical need for more priests. Have you all thought of doing that? And the girls are like, they're extraordinary.
Right. That is what I do at University of North Texas, so, or at St. John Paul II Catholic Church. And again, it's not to discriminate, but it's an opportunity for them to go, for the young men to go deeper into their faith and to serve at the altar, to pay attention to what's going on during the Mass, and to be keenly aware of those items and things that the priest is doing for the preparation of the bringing of the gifts and the preparation for the Eucharist, all the little details. And I intentionally do some things just to make sure that the guys are awake. So I have 30-pound. My candles are 30 pounds each, and so when they pick up the candle and they're holding it for the gospel, it's going to take a guy to do it. And I intentionally have heavy candles for them to lift up, and so that they're actually doing some masculine things. Priesthood, when I was a kid, priesthood had been feminized, and that's why I didn't turn toward it. It might have been my perception. It might have simply been my perception. I'm sure it was, but I've tried to bring the masculinity back into the Mass, simply because it's part of the priesthood of Jesus Christ. And to know that it's not just, it's not a Mass that is so physical. It's the daily life of the priest that is so physical. It's the spiritual battle. It's being in there day in and day out through someone's illness, through maybe the recovery, sometimes their death, all the different things that we encounter to sustain the body of Christ and sustain life, and to bring life in the midst of tragedies and crises. That's going to take a tough person to do that. I'm going to say a man of steel, but it's a very spiritually fit man. And so I have, in fact, done some of those things. So. So we have, like I've got some girls that are middle school, high school, so they're family members, or they're part of the family of the parishioner base, and I have them do the porter for coming in and welcoming, and all of those types of things. So there's positions and places. We just need to really look at that. So.
Okay, there was one hand over here, but before I acknowledge it, I want everybody to know that I didn't work on all this kind of thing myself as far as getting the local speakers. I had some help, a lot of help. In fact, the person who invited all these three priests and the others to come to the rally is Ernie Dockler over here, a good friend of mine who is a former U.S. Council president. And Ernie had his hand up, so I think he wants to ask a question.
Yes, definitely. With the girls, definitely, yes. Sister Anna Imelda is great. She and I work closely together with Vocations and trying to do what we can. So I think next month or two we'll have a Vocation Day just for the girls. We had a Vocation Day for the guys last week. Seminarians were there at Nolan. And then pretty soon we'll have one Vocation Day for the girls. And Sister Anna Imelda will be helping to lead that.
And she's been also to TCU a couple of times, which has been a great thing. And I did not hold her personally responsible for Houston Astros loss. She's a member of the order that was part of all that. The sisters that were watching the ball games down there. She was pretty sad.
Okay, I need to make sure to leave enough time for Richard to wrap things up before we leave. Do we have time for one more question? Or? One more question. Okay, right here.
Just real quick to that point, I just want to, not to have the last word because I won't, which is good.
Go ahead.
But we can kind of get in our minds of who these kids are, and everything is negative. And I remember the first time I said Mass at TCU, I did the ablutions and I sat down in the chair and I looked, every kid was kneeling, every one of them. I didn't say anything about that. I never have, not once. And after they receive communion, they all kneel and they all stay kneeling until I sit down. And I think that should give us all a lot of hope. The Holy Spirit has not abandoned us or the church. And so let's keep praying.
You know, that was a good point you made, because I used to be one of those Catholics years ago that says, you know, these kids, you know, they don't follow the faith anymore. They're just not there. They're not doing it. And then I started really getting involved with Sarah. I started going up to the Newman Center, and I was amazed, and I was reinvigorated seeing those young people up there. So now when I have some Catholic, a curmudgeon Catholic, is that what you call it, a curmudgeon Catholic, tell me, yeah, these kids aren't doing it anymore, I says, well, where the heck are you looking? Because they're out there. If you're looking, they're all around us, and that's wonderful. Now, another thing, I want to make a couple comments. Father Willis, you said 90-10 ratio of women to men. Now, I used to train salespeople, and we call this the bait and switch. You can get guys coming through that door at a 90-10 ratio, but I would have I'd be perched in your office right in front of that door, and as soon as they walk in, come on in here, I got a deal for you. Okay, that'll be a hard sell, I know, but that it's all, you don't have to win many of them. The other thing I would suggest is hire Margot. Now, she works cheap. I mean, she can work on commission and residuals. That's what she works on. I know her line will work, but she'd do a good job for you. I'm going to excuse everybody now, but want to